Okay, we're live. This is Attorney Vincent Davis, and the name of this show is Relatives Fight CPS. And I'm on with my co-host tonight, Miss Georgette Truan, and a very special guest. We have Emily Lawson. I've been practicing law here in California for almost 35 years, and I primarily practice in the area of CPS-related matters, including civil rights lawsuits against social workers. Georgette, tell the folks how you're associated with this program.
I am the co-host for Relatives Fight CPS, and I was a previous survivor of CPS.
Okay, very good. And Miss Lawson, how did you become acquainted with this program tonight?
Well, when my grandchildren were first placed in the foster care system, my husband and I took immediate placement, hoping to keep them out of a traditional foster care home. I followed all the guidelines and became a Missouri licensed kinship provider. And I had the children live with me for 3 years and 2 months, was pursuing guardianship, had signed guardianship, consent guardianship, had a guardianship case in the court system, and Children's Division all of a sudden decided, she only wants guardianship of one child. Siblings need to stay together, so we're going to relocate both children to a non-relative foster home. There's a little bit more to the story, and I hope we can get into it later, but that's how I got involved with the foster care system.
Okay, so you mentioned the state you're from. You're from the Show Me State of Missouri?
From Missouri, yeah. I'm originally from Texas, but
Okay.
I currently, the last 19 years, reside in Missouri, in a small town between St. Louis and Springfield.
What's the name of it?
Salem.
Have you ever heard of Knob Noster, Missouri?
I have not.
Okay.
I have not.
Because that's where my people are from.
Okay.
At least on my father's side.
Nope, not heard of that. I'm still getting to know Missouri. To tell you the truth, yes, I am. But I knew very little about the foster care system. To be honest, I knew very, very little about the foster care system. I had no idea. I didn't even know what they call a child abuse hotline was. Until I got involved with the foster care system. And today I know more than I care about how the foster care system works. And it's very broken and it's flawed. And there needs to be some really heavy changes in the foster care child welfare system.
Well, before we get into the possible changes, why don't you tell us your story?
Well, as I mentioned, when the children were first placed in the foster care system, my husband and I took immediate placement. I actually had the oldest. These children are only 15 months apart. These are children from my sons. When the oldest child, the little boy, he was 6 weeks old, and when he and his mother and my son came to live with us, so he became my grandson automatically. We automatically bonded. He may not be biological, but you don't have to be biological blood related to love a child. So he was 6 weeks old when we first began our relationship with this child. They moved out, then there was another sibling born, and she is my biological granddaughter. She's my son's daughter. And at the time, she was 6 weeks old, and he was 17 months old when they were placed in our care in August the 2nd of 2016. I had no idea it had become a suspicion of child abuse on the mother's end. And of course, they mentioned they were going to place the children in foster care. Well, we're their grandparents. We'll take immediate placement. So we did. We took immediate placement of both children, 6 weeks, 17 months at the time. And they both lived in our home from August the 2nd, 2016 until September the 25th of 2019. The little boy, he was involved in the I Can Too Learning Center. So he went to the Learning Center for 2 years and 10 months. As time progressed and the children grew older, with the little girl, she was only 6 weeks old. So I immediately fell into the mother role. And that's how she and I bonded. And that's how she looks at me as a motherly and not a grandmother. And so basically does the little boy. But mom's visitation was hit or miss. She might show, she might not show. The older child started having some emotional issues, to the point when mom wouldn't show up for visits. They were but kind of would, and I hate to say kind of violent outbursts. He's so little, you don't want to label, but he would bang his head on the wall. He would kick, he would scream, throw chairs at other children. He bit his teacher, and his behavior was confrontational. I was asking the case manager, how do I address these emotional issues? If anyone knows that a child in state custody, any emotional issues, you have to go through the case manager. That's what I kept trying to do, was ask the case manager for support. I took him to his pediatrician. The pediatrician said in order to get the child the emotional help he needs, it has to be initiated by Children's Division. I was unable to do it on my own. I called what's a healthcare emotional, it's called Compass Health, that's here locally. Compass Health told me the same thing, directed me towards the case manager. Page 37 of the foster parent handbook says the exact same thing. Any emotional issues for a child in foster placement go through the case manager. At one point, she came for her regular home visit. They come every month and they check up on you. And I had him sitting in a high chair, and he was very, very upset. He told the case manager when she asked him why he was upset. He said, "My mother is a liar. She didn't come to see me like she promised, and I'm very angry." Instead of trying to redirect, she handed him a teddy bear. She goes, "It's okay. Hit this teddy bear and pretend it's your mother," which I thought was very, very inappropriate. Very, very inappropriate. I had a nanny for 3 years that she was actually here to witness this. And I kind of said, no, we've got to redirect and channel this and get him some emotional help. He was asked not to return to daycare because it was disruptive. So I took the child to what's called Dent County Developmental Preschool for an evaluation on August the 23rd of 2019 to see if they could kind of help guide and get some support services that we needed for our family. Not one time was I ever offered in-home services, which I now am very much aware of. I was unaware of any type of services at all, that there was any type of in-home services until after they moved the children. I had good news. On September the 18th, the child got accepted to the Dent County preschool. He had a start date October 1st, 2019 with an IEP. They had caretakers there and teachers who would be able to help him and understood his emotional issues. On September the 24th, the case manager called and said they had found the children a foster placement. She and I got into an argument. There was no reason to place them or disrupt placement. We're their family. He had started seeing a counselor. He saw a counselor a total of 4 times before they moved him, which hadn't even been any time at all to make progress. 4 times, just seeing a counselor for 4 times was no progress at all. 5 days before he was supposed to start the developmental preschool, they're telling me they're going to move him. On September the 25th of 2019, they removed the children and placed them in a non-relative foster home. I told the supervisor, the case manager's supervisor, absolutely not, please. And I was begging, please don't do this. We want to adopt both children because you no longer have that option. We are relocating the children. I have a court document because we were pursuing guardianship. We were trying to get guardianship. Parents were agreeing that we get guardianship. Children's Division was agreeing, and they accepted that, yes, we need to. This was filed on September the 6th of 2019. 20 days before they moved them, this was filed, and Children's Division was all in agreement that, yes, the children need to be placed in our care, in our guardianship. We were pursuing guardianship. And then all of us, I don't know. I never said I wanted to move the child. I said I wanted help for the child, emotional issues. That didn't mean take him away. And they continued to claim that I was asking for him to be moved. Well, why would I go to the trouble of taking him for an evaluation at the Dent County Developmental Preschool? He went for about a 2-hour evaluation on August the 23rd. Why would I go to all those links trying to get him help just to ask them to move them? And he had a start date 5 days prior to his start date where with an IEP, they removed the child. And I have court documents where they're saying that I asked for him to be moved. I let the judge know on November that no, I never said I wanted him to move. I said I wanted help with his emotional issues, to address his emotional issues. I could not do it on my own. In and out of court, and we went to court in it was first of all January 2020, and this is right before COVID set in. That court date got postponed when the case manager supervisor said that if I was going to get the children back, I was going to give the oldest child over to his biological father, who I was never able to contact or find. He didn't have any contact with the child for 4 years. He had no contact with this child whatsoever. And I was pursuing guardianship for him, but she said that I was going to give him back to his biological father. At the time, according to Missouri CaseNet public record, that gentleman that she's referring that I was going to give this child was incarcerated by the Missouri Corrections. There's no way I would have been able to give this child back to him while he was in the Department of Corrections. So where she came up with that story, I have no idea. So of course the court got postponed. COVID set in, all the restrictions, court dates were canceled. When I finally got back into court in June of 2020, the judge, his judgment, and I've actually got a copy of that. I just most recently got this transcribed, how he actually says that children in state custody, they can move them whenever they want to. And that he believed that placing the children with us at first, they complied by the grandparents' visitation rights. He actually says, and I can kind of read you word for word what he says. He talking about the best interest. He says, I can't go back and redress the wrong that was done to you by you and your husband by Children's Division removing the children. And he says, if it's not in the children's best interest, I'm guided by what's in the children's best interest. And that's my view of the law, not taking in consideration that relative placement. There's a Missouri statute that requires relative placement if placements available that are appropriate. It's Missouri statute 210-565. Then he goes back and he says that we are an appropriate placement. He believes that we are an appropriate placement, and I have the court document right here where he believes that we are an appropriate placement, but sees no reasoning because of stability to move them from their current foster placement because they begin to bond with their current foster care provider. Then he goes on and we discuss moving forward with adoption, and he says, I believe you can go ahead and petition for adoption. He asked if there's anyone that objects. The juvenile office says, no objection. I believe she can file the adoption petition. He goes on, the guardian ad litem, no, I believe she can move forward with the adoption petition. So nothing, no objections whatsoever. I file the adoption petition. Moving forward, I have signed consent to adopt. Signed consent for my husband and I to adopt, and we are trying to pull these children out of the foster care system and to stay with their family. I cannot get these children out of the foster care system. And according to the 14th Amendment, it is supposed to protect the fundamental right of the parent to the direct upbringing of the child. And it is the 14th Amendment Constitution, that they have been violating by ignoring the consent for guardianship, ignoring the consent for adoption. The parents want the grandparents, which is myself and my husband, to have guardianship or adoption of these children. Either or. We don't want either or. We're willing to adopt to pull them out of here. And I've also found out that the judge in the case had a prior relationship with the current foster mother. He was her court-appointed attorney when she was a minor in the years 2000 and a few years after.
Wait.
And
Repeat that again. Repeat that whole relationship then.
I found out that the judge overseeing this case had a prior relationship to the current foster mother. He was her court-appointed attorney when she was a minor in 2000 and several years after that.
Wow.
Okay, hold on. So you're saying that the judge was the prior attorney for the foster parent?
Yes, matter of public record, Missouri CaseNet. Anyone can pull it up. You don't need a password. I talked to a friend of our family who is a retired judge who said, look for the connection. I thought connection to the case manager or supervising case manager. No, sir. We found the connection was the judge. The judge was her court-appointed attorney when she was a minor. I have the documentation to prove it. Missouri CaseNet, you, sir, could pull it up. Georgette could pull it up. Anyone that wants to log on to Missouri CaseNet, if you know what you're looking for, can find this document.
Wow.
It's not sealed. It's not private, and you need no password. But from what I understand, the U.S. Supreme Court has repeatedly held that parents have a fundamental right to make decisions as companionship, care, and custody of their children. It is their fundamental right under the 14th Amendment. And they are violating the 14th Amendment. They are violating these rights. Is that correct?
Are you asking me a question?
Yes. Do I understand the 14th Amendment? Am I understanding it correctly that by signing the consent to adopt for us, no one else they didn't sign consent to adopt for just anyone. It's specific to me and my husband. And the state of Missouri is not honoring that. I'm believing that is a violation of the 14th Amendment of the United States Constitution.
Okay. Well, a 14th Amendment violation is a little bit more, complex analysis. By the way, I put in the comments for everyone and for you too, Miss Emily. Go to that website. You can make a formal complaint against the judge in Missouri. I'm not a Missouri lawyer, okay?
Mm-hmm.
But if that happened in California, in my opinion, that would be completely improper, especially if the judge didn't tell the people of the prior relationship between him and the foster mother. Have you thought about making a complaint?
Absolutely. I have the forms to do it. I contacted the Missouri Bar Association and they emailed me the actual complaint forms. And I asked, I was on I'm hoping it's okay to say this because we really want people to know about Family Forward Project. I'm sure, are you familiar with the Family Forward Project, Connie Regulari?
Oh yeah, yes, definitely. Connie's
Zoom meeting with her earlier.
Connie's been a guest on our some of our shows before. She's a great attorney. She is really trying to make change in these CPS things. She does a lot of work politically. She is quite the advocate and fighter. But did you talk to Connie about this, about the judge having a prior relationship?
Yes, and to go ahead and move forward with a complaint. I have a grandparent visitation hearing coming up in October that I'm going to represent myself at. I'm going to have to try to do the best possible job I can because my a current attorney that I had refused to put in a motion for visitation for the older child because he wasn't biologically related to me. There's a Missouri statute that is for third-party visitation. Because of my relationship with the child, he knows me as grandmother. He knows my husband as grandfather. He lived in my home under the state eye for 3 years, but he lived in he's been part of my world since he was born. He is my grandson, and she refused to do the third-party visitation motion as requested. She only did the motion for my granddaughter. And she also, when I asked for the adoption paperwork that moved forward with the adoption, she refused to move forward with my adoption petition until she actually got placement of the children back in my home. And I believe once the judge said that we are an appropriate placement, I have the transcript, those children should have been moved back with their family. Is that not where the family first federal funding comes from? Missouri accepted federal funding in 2018. The state got their first grant for federal funding under the Family First Prevention Services Act in 2019. They use a lot of the funding for kinship navigators, but when I read, they're not supposed to fully implement it until October of 2021. But I'm trying to understand, I guess, the federal law 42, 671 through 673. Somewhere maybe in there where federal law requires kinship placement, if kinship placement is appropriate. Well, we've been found appropriate. I've got the court document to prove that we've been found an appropriate placement for these children in a court of law. And
well, hold on a second. The code section that you mentioned, 42 U.S.C. 672, that has to deal with payments.
Well, I have I'm supposed to look through 671 through 673. I don't know exactly what I'm looking for.
Who gave you these laws?
Oh, Miss Connie. She
Okay.
told me to read. She told me to read through the 42, the 671 through 673, and it should point me in the right direction. But I haven't been able to locate where it says that there's a federal statute that requires family placement, kinship placement, if kinship placement is accepted, and there are appropriate placements. I completely get the purpose of the child welfare system, but I believe it's been taken to the extreme, and
What do you mean? Give me an example.
there was no reason to move my grandchildren, other than they found a foster family that wanted to adopt, and I believe that that's why they removed my grandchildren. I've made some other notes here too.
Well, hold on a second, because there's something I need to get straight in my mind.
Yes.
Emily, you had your grandchildren placed with you, and they took them out of your home?
Claiming I only wanted guardianship of my granddaughter, that I did not want guardianship of the boy.
Stop. When did this happen?
And September 25th of 2019.
Did you try to fight it at all in court?
I've done nothing but try to fight it. I have done nothing but try to fight it.
Have you talked to anyone about filing a civil rights lawsuit in federal court?
I don't know who to do that. I don't know how to do that. I don't know where to find that at.
Have you talked to Connie about it?
No, I haven't.
Because she's very, very versed in that area.
No, I haven't talked to her. But she knows my situation. I met Connie in St. Louis at the National Conference for Family Court Judges. I got an invite not to actually attend the conference, but we went to the Marriott, and I actually met Kimberly Lowe, who's running for Congress, and spent the day with Connie, and that's how I actually met her and a couple of other family advocates. I've been trying to do nothing but fight this. That's why I attended a training class through the University of Missouri Parent Link in March of 2020, right before the COVID lockdown. I went to a training conference in Rolla, Missouri, hosted by the university. Right after I went to that training conference, that case manager tried to have my foster care license revoked. There was a full formal hearing of my case in April of 2020, and I did not have my license revoked. So they continue to go to the length, and that's what I'm telling you, that when the judge, when he said, I cannot go back and redress the wrong that was done to you by Children's Division, he goes, and he says, that's no finding against you. We find you are an appropriate placement for the children. But he has to think about the current situation. And he goes to mention how COVID-19, the courts were shut down. That's no one's fault. He actually says that may have put you in a worse situation factually, and that he believes that the children have bonded with their current non-relative placement, or he says current foster placement, that they've bonded, and he finds no reason to upset the situation because the children need stability. And he finds no reasoning to actually place them back with us. That is exactly what he said. No consideration. This is our family. He's making a lifelong decision, and that we have signed consent for guardianship and adoption.
How old are the children?
5 and 6 now.
And obviously they know who you are.
I see them. I saw them Monday, and I believe they are being abused in this foster home. A month ago, I see them every other Monday on the video visit. She had marks on her eye and her nose. When I asked her what happened, she said, Nini, she calls me Nini. I never wanted to leave your home. I don't like it here. She tried to tell me what happened, and the visit cut off after 9 minutes. The next visit, I asked my grandson. She said, I love you, but I can't talk to you. And she went to her room. I talked to my grandson. We talked about going back to school and how his summer was. She came back into the room, and we said our prayers and sweet dreams. And she says, I love you, but I can't talk to you. And she left again. I asked my grandson, I said, is she angry with me? Is she mad at me? I heard the foster father say, tell her she doesn't love her anymore. You know, the little boy shook his head no. His eyes got like he was scared to death, and he moved back. The video cut off. Now, Monday, I just had another video visit with them, and we talked about school. Everything went well. My husband, nothing went out of the sorts with that video visit. They talked to me about a concert that they'd went to. They talked about the friends that they'd met at school. So that was a normal video visit. But I'm not allowed to see them in person. The case manager will not let me see them in person.
Do you have a pen and a piece of paper?
I bet you I sure do. I'm ready.
Okay. Have you ever heard of the Department of Health and Human Services in Washington, D.C.?
I have.
So they have a website where you can make a complaint, and they will actually investigate your complaint. They control all the money, all the federal money that's given to states regarding CPS matters. And when they do an investigation, they take it seriously. All right? So that's one thing you should do. The second thing you should do is you should contact, or you can go on their website, the U.S. Department of Justice Civil Rights Division. Because the case that you've just explained to me, there may be civil rights violations, if not of the children, maybe of you as well. Mm-hmm. See, the problem is that courts have not really extended certain civil rights protections to grandparents. And then there's the whole issue of, well, are you really a grandparent? So I've been involved and I've known about some cases where grandparents have sued and were just kicked out of court within the first few months because courts have ruled that they don't really have the standing to bring a civil rights case regarding some child in foster care. Civil rights cases, and depending on which side you're on, unfortunately are very narrowly construed. All right. I get the impression that these days, and it's like a pendulum going back and forth over the decades, they're narrowing down who can sue a government entity like, the state or the county for civil rights violations. So right now, unless it's a very rare situation, a grandparent may not even be able to bring a civil rights violation. Now, the other day I was talking on this show, or on the show yesterday, about how you might be able to get around that. But, it's a very sophisticated thing. I was talking to a client today who has a civil rights case. He has a pretty good civil rights case against a county here in California. And, I was telling him, I said, this isn't like a car accident case where, two cars collided at an intersection.
Mm-hmm.
It's much more sophisticated, much more complex, much more involved, a lot more work to prove. So there are some hurdles that you're going to have to overcome. But I would talk to an attorney who is licensed in your state about civil rights violations. And I think, unfortunately, one of the things, if you were here in California, one of the things that you're going to have to overcome is that even though you say that you are the grandparent, the law may not recognize you as that.
The paternity test proving that I'm her grandmother, that my son is her father, is not proof enough?
Oh, I thought you said that you weren't the grandparent.
No,
There's two children. There's one that is 15 months older than my granddaughter. My granddaughter is my biological granddaughter. She
Okay.
is my son's daughter, proven paternity.
Okay, then, if that's accurate, in some states like California, that would make you some type of relative or have some type of affiliation or relationship to the half sibling or the step sibling as well.
Exactly. That's where the third party comes in. Not to mention that they placed him in my care for over 3 years, 3 years and 2 months. But the little girl was in my home. I took her straight from Children's Hospital in St. Louis when she was hospitalized at 6 weeks old, and she came home with me, but she was already living with me prior to even being placed in foster care. They were just on a weekend with their mother. But the little girl is my biological granddaughter. Paternity proved it. She is my son's daughter.
Are they moving towards having the foster parents adopt the children?
Yes, they placed these children, my grandchildren, with knowing that the foster family wants to adopt. They completely disregarded any action plans that I have. I've educated. The little boy was showing signs of reactive attachment. He was very, very young. He was only, he's 6 now. He was 4 years old. And he saw the counselor 4 times, suggested he may be showing signs of reactive attachment. I now know what that is. I didn't know at the time.
Okay, do me a favor for everybody that's watching. Reactive attachment disorder. Tell us what that is.
You want me to tell you?
Yeah.
Oh, when the child they begin to bond, they don't bond properly with the caregiver, such as a parent, from birth. And when the mom was in and out of the picture, he wanted to be with his mom, but she was very inconsistent with visitation. It's a bonding that happened from birth. he stayed with me a lot when he was little. Like I said, he was 6 weeks old himself when he and his mom and my son actually moved in to live with us. He was just a brand new born baby, and he and I started to bond. But I took care of him a lot of the time. She would leave for about a week at a time and leave him with me. And then before my granddaughter was born, she was pregnant with my granddaughter when she and the little boy moved out. My son and his girlfriend, they parted ways for several months, and my son actually became incarcerated, and she moved to her own apartment with the little boy, with my grandson, while she was pregnant with my granddaughter. And so he bonded with her, and then the bond was broken. So that's what it's a bonding that he has with his mother, or inconsistency, or the bonding issue is the way that I'm understanding his emotional issue.
Let me read to you what the MayoClinic.org defines reactive attachment disorder. Reactive attachment disorder is a rare but serious condition in which an infant or young child doesn't establish healthy attachments with parents or caregivers. Reactive attachment disorder may develop if the child's basic needs for comfort, affection, and nurturing aren't met, and loving, caring, stable attachments with others are not established. Now, tell me how that applies to the children in this case.
To my granddaughter, it doesn't apply. I had never heard of what reactive attachment was. The counselor was saying he had the reactive attachment due to his mother's inconsistency. That was his exact words. And he goes, it's going to be a long road, but we'll address these issues. And then they relocated the children. Now, my granddaughter and I developed our bond because, she started living with me pretty much right after she was born. Her mom and all three children, all three stayed. When I say children, I mean the mom is a child too. The mom and the baby stayed with us right after the baby was born. My granddaughter was born, and then they moved to get their own apartment. And the little girl was with me on and off, and they were home for a weekend. So she's always known me as the mom, as the caregiver. She does not have the emotional issues as the older child, my grandson. She does not have those emotional issues. She does say, I never wanted to leave your home, Nini. I don't like it here. And she's asked to come home. She's begged to come home. Can I please come home now, Nini? Can I please come home now, Nini? And of course, I don't have any say over what I can do. I would love nothing more than for her to come home and be with us and give her forever home. We want to adopt them, get them out of the system. My son's incarcerated in Florida. The mom of this children lives in Florida. They have no parental rights. Parental rights have been terminated. And all we want is to adopt them and make them forever ours. By adopting these children, in the future, they could still have a relationship with their biological parents. Should their biological parents get their act together, because the mom is capable of being a good mom if she just needs guidance. She just needs guidance, and she needs to take the guidance. She needs to accept the guidance. But she's moved on to Florida and has her own life. So, and we want these children. And I have experience in teaching in the Montessori approach. I've had education in child development, child psychology, and teaching techniques for young children. I have experience in training in that. I could do homeschooling. COVID-19, there's a new strain of the COVID virus. There's no reason that these children can't stay here with me, and I can teach them from home, and they're safe. Both of their foster parents work. She works. He works. They put them in school and a daycare, and there's no reason why. I've managed on my own in-home services to pay out of pocket for a counselor to come into my home, work one-on-one with the children and with the family. And that's been disregarded. That's completely been disregarded. I know about from the University of Missouri. It's called Parent Link. They have a kinship advisory committee. I've been part of the kinship advisory committee for probably about 7 months. And if I'd have known about the Parent Link and all the services, I would have been connected to in-home services. I would have been connected to counseling much sooner, much sooner than I was connected. I would have gotten all the services that Children's Division just didn't do. Children's Division failed at their job.
Mm-hmm.
They failed my family. They failed the children. They failed the children. Most important, they failed these children.
Mm-hmm.
And there's no reason. We have stability. My husband and I raised 2 children, my son and my daughter, on a lot less than what we have now. We have a home. We have 13 acres. He has a very good job. I work part-time. There's no reason why we cannot take care of these kids. When I say I work part-time, I work from home. I don't have to take these kids anywhere until after this virus situation is a little more under control and people aren't dying from it every day.
Mm-hmm.
There's no reason why I cannot have these children in our home and appropriate placement and care for them, other than Children's Division keeps fighting me on that. And I believe the judge has something to do with it by having a current relationship with the foster mom. I really, really do.
Well, wait a minute. So their relationship is current?
No. Well, he's the judge over our case. The prior relationship. I'm sorry, maybe I misspoke. He was her guardian, court-appointed guardian ad litem when she was a minor, but he's still seeing the case. He's overseeing the case, which she's a part of. So
you should make that complaint quickly.
Mm-hmm.
Because decisions are still going to be made on your case. And, if you were in California, this is the type of thing that a judge would have to disclose to you. Not you find it on your own, searching from computer data bank.
Well, we found out you can't imagine what you can find if you just start looking and start searching. You can find all kinds of things, But I completely believe that there are some civil rights issues with the parents. That consent to adopt and that consent to a guardianship was signed way before parental rights were terminated. Way before parental rights were terminated.
Emily, what's going on with you finding an attorney to represent you back in Missouri?
I had an attorney to represent me, and she just refused to do what I've asked her to do. I hired the attorney on the basis that she was going to finish my adoption. I had already filed the adoption petition. The first attorney that I had said, "You need a law firm. I'm just a lawyer. You need to find someone who is involved in a law firm." So we parted ways.
What?
Yes. The first attorney that I had that helped with the court case and was helping file the adoption petition told me, "You need a law firm. I'm just a lawyer. You need a bigger law firm."
Was he or she a juvenile attorney, or was he or she a family law attorney?
Family law attorney.
Okay, Mr. Davis says all the time never to hire a family law attorney for a juvenile case.
I didn't know that at the time.
Well, yeah, I mean, some family law attorneys know about juvenile cases. A lot don't. Emily, I guess the more important, question is, because we're talking about apples and oranges, California and Missouri. Does the attorney have experience in CPS cases?
Well, I came to find out that she's guardian ad litem for them. And she actually told me that she could not fight Children's Division. No, you've got to. I filed a complaint against the guardian ad litem. They have a guardian ad litem that I've never talked to during the entire 3 years, 2 months. Never one time did I talk to that guardian ad litem who's making decisions in this case. Not one time. So I've already filed a complaint against the guardian ad litem because my attorney refused to get involved in that. She said, "You have to do that on your own." She said, I was sitting in her office looking at her, "I cannot fight Children's Division in the capacity that you want me to fight Children's Division. I have to maintain a relationship with them when this case is over." Okay? She's guardian ad litem for them. She's not going to mess up her little cookie jar. Does that make sense? And she should have told me. Now, I've had attorneys honestly tell me that I'm not going to fight children's division. You need to find someone else. So that's why I'm going to be representing my own self, because I can't afford to hire another attorney at this moment. I can't. I've paid her a lot of money. All I hired her to do was to finish the adoption. It's very clear, if she would have read this transcript and listened to this court where there were no objections into moving forward with adoption. That is what I wanted her to do. I wanted her to move forward with the adoption and get these children out of this foster care system and back with their family where they belong. She argued with me and said, I have to have placement of the children before you can adopt them. No, there's a Missouri statute. The children own for grandparents. The children only had to live with your home 6 months out of 24 months. I argued with her on that. I don't know the exact statute off the top of my head. I should have had that prepared. I'm very sorry. I apologize. But I had the children for 3 years. So the 6 months is perfect. I'm more than met that. But she kept going for placement. And the judge kept saying that we appropriate, but wouldn't place them back with me. And then when I asked her about my granddaughter, she's already filed the grandparent visitation petition. That's already filed. We already have a grandparent petition for my biological granddaughter. I said, do the same with my grandson. She says, because you're not blood related, I can't. Third-party visitation gives me the right to do that because of our relationship. So I'm going to have to find a new attorney. We're going to have to borrow against 401k. We're going to have to do financing for our house. We're going to have to do something, max out every credit card I have, to do whatever I have to do to try to get these children placed back with their family where they belong.
How close are you to hiring another attorney?
I've got to find one. I've got to find one that's going to fight, that's going to do what I've asked. I found one. It's, I believe it's called the St. Louis Law Group. They're in St. Louis. They're 150 miles away from me. So they can't be any conflict in my little area for them. But what I'm hearing from you saying is that I need more of a civil rights attorney, a juvenile attorney.
No. Let me be very clear. In the CPS courtroom, you need a CPS defense attorney. Period. End of story. If you plan on suing these people in the United States District Court or in a Missouri State Court, you're going to need a civil rights attorney, and preferably one that has done cases against social workers. Okay?
Okay.
Those are two different things. To you, it may seem that it's all one bunch, one ball of wax, but they're two different things. Okay, so I would suggest that for the time being, that you focus on getting the children back. Okay?
That's where I'm at a loss. I've tried twice. I've went to get placement of these children twice.
In the CPS court?
I in the family court, see,
hold on.
The time I went to court was January 2021, and the attorney didn't even present. I had no idea what type of case it was until I showed up. I was not completely prepared for that. She was definitely not prepared for that. She didn't even present to the judge that guardianship has already been signed consent, and we have an adoption petition, signed consent from the parents. She didn't even bring that up to the judge for him to honor that.
Well, see, Emily, I'm not licensed in California. Excuse me, in Missouri. I'm licensed in California.
Exactly.
The problem is that I'm not sure what you're saying carries as much weight as you think it does. Because if it was in California, it's not a slam dunk.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, what you just said, let's assume that those facts were true in California. It's not a slam dunk. There's a lot of outs for the social worker and the department to try to take the kids away from you. But here's what you have going for you. You had the kids for 3 years. They just can't come and take the kids from you without giving you a hearing and telling you why.
No, they're supposed to give me reasoning why. I've never gotten a reason why.
Right. But even if they tell you why, in California, you'd be entitled to have a hearing. And for those of you that are in California, it's Welfare and Institutions Code 366.26 N as in Nancy. So, I mean, the more I think about it now, I'm going to have to agree with you. This is a due process problem. And one of the reasons why I think California added 366.26N as in Nancy is because they were taking kids from people like you and not giving them a hearing. And that is a notice issue. That is a due process issue.
Well, their claim is that I asked for the little boy to be moved. I didn't ask for the little boy to be moved.
But it doesn't matter. Did you go into court and have a hearing and explain that to the judge? Yes or no?
No, we didn't have a hearing. I mean, they moved before they moved the kids or after?
Doesn't matter.
To get them back after. We never went to court before they moved them.
Okay, and that's the due process violation. Because once they're moved, you've heard of the old saying, possession is 9/10 of the law. Mm-hmm. You're kind of screwed.
Well, yeah, the judge said that because the children were in state custody, the state can move them anytime they want to, whenever they feel like it. If they believe that's the child's best interest, they can move the children anytime they want to.
Okay, so
they did.
I don't know about Missouri law. I would check with a CPS attorney in your area, but that's not the law in California. And generally, I am told, all of the state laws are based upon federal regulations from the Department of Health and Human Services. So I'd be very surprised if that were the law in Missouri, but you got to talk to someone to find out. And last night I was talking about this, and I don't want you to fall into this trap. A lot of people think if I know the law, ipso facto, I get the kids back. It's not true. There's a four-step process. You only know the beginning and the ending. There's some things that go on in the middle. Mm-hmm. And that's the procedural battle and the evidentiary battle. And by evidence, I mean, something that's relevant and admissible. A lot of people don't understand the rules of evidence.
I'm completely lost on what my next step needs to be because I've done nothing but fight, and I'm not sure what my next step even needs to be, and I know nothing.
Right. So here, have you ever seen a hamster?
Absolutely. On
the wheel? They're running 100 miles an hour, and they're absolutely going no place. And that's the impression that I'm getting from you. You've been wronged. I think we can all agree to that. And you're trying to figure out how to right this wrong, and you're like on the hamster wheel going 100 miles an hour, and you're not getting any place. What you have to do is you have to find a CPS lawyer somewhere in in Missouri. Mm-hmm. It could be 150 miles away. It could be any place in Missouri. I suggest you start looking in the St. Louis area. Right?
Yes, that's where I had a consultation with, but they're a family law attorney. They're not.
But you have to make sure that you know and you talk to them. Mm-hmm. Because some people come to me, and I do family law. I do divorces, but I'm more known for CPS cases. So some do, family law attorneys know CPS. Some of them don't know at all. So you need to ask that attorney, hey man or hey madam, do you have CPS experience? And if so, how much? Tell me about your experience. There used to be a woman that used to be the host of one of the shows we have. And she made about 50 phone calls before she found someone that would help her. And that someone helped her for free.
Oh wow.
Okay?
That's the long shot. Nobody's going to do anything for free.
Well, you might be right, but if there's a chance, you need to let your fingers do the walking on that telephone. Because you're not in the ballpark right now.
Mm-hmm.
And you need to get in the ballpark. You need to get in the ballpark so someone can explain to you law, procedure, evidence equals winning and getting the children back. See, all you're telling me is about law. That's at best, that's 1/3 of the equation.
Well, it's difficult when you can't even get the judge to acknowledge there is a law.
Well, here's your problem on that one. You found somebody advised you and you searched and you found there's, in my opinion, and I'm not a Missouri lawyer, so, don't quote me, but talk to a Missouri lawyer. If he represented the foster mother previously, he has to disclose, if you were in California, okay, he would have to disclose that to everybody, including you.
No disclosure.
Right. I gathered that.
Mm-hmm.
And some would argue that it doesn't matter if he discloses or not. He can't be on the case.
Right.
So I don't know what the law is in Missouri, but I'm sure there's something wrong with that. And you need to talk to a Missouri lawyer and you need to file that complaint. Now, if you file that complaint and that gains traction, guess what? Not only can you get a new judge, but maybe a review of the rulings that he has made in this case already.
Mm-hmm.
So, but you got to have someone guiding you. Emily, I give this example all the time. If I go to the doctor and he says, Davis, you need open heart surgery. Guess what I'm not going to do? I'm not going to go home and get on Google and try to figure it out how to do it myself.
Oh, right.
Right? Because I'm going to end up dead. But so many people I talk to think, it's America. I can find out what the law is and, I can go to court, I can represent myself, and I should be treated fairly and I should win. That's completely wrong. Completely. I tell this story of a guy that came to me on a Saturday morning. This is years ago without an appointment. And he had a stack of documents about this thick. And he was, kept waving them at me when he was telling me the story. And what I didn't know is he had been to court on the Friday before and he had lost. And he came in with allegations about corruption, about fraud, many things. And I said, well, the bottom line is what was the complaint? He said, the judge wouldn't look at my documents. I said, did you present them to the judge just like this? And he said, yes. He said, but the judge used the word inadmissible. Right? What the guy didn't know is that the evidentiary requirements to get documents admitted into evidence. You just can't show up to court with an inch stack of documents and expect the judge to admit them and consider them in making a decision. But his whole case was based upon these documents.
Mm-hmm.
So he lost and he claimed fraud. He had looked up the law. He had his documents. But like I said earlier, he didn't have the procedural and the evidentiary parts down of the case. And that's why I say to you, call. It's worth your while. Believe me. Look, Emily, I've been doing this in December, it will be 35 years. I'm not just telling you this because I'm pulling it out of my rear end.
I believe you. You know, I've made tons of phone calls. I've paid. They don't even do free consultations. I've had to pay for consultations just to find out at the end of a $250 consultation fee that they can't help me.
Right. Well, you know what? There's something that I like to call a pre-frame. Right. Before you go for the consultation, you call them, you say, hey man, can you do a CPS case?
Mm-hmm.
I'm a relative or a grandmother and I'm trying to get a kid back that's in CPS custody. Can you, not will you, can you help me with that?
Mm-hmm.
And if they say no, then go to the next one. Go to the next one. I don't want you to answer this, but have you called 50 people? Don't
Probably
answer.
have.
Okay. Keep calling.
Honestly, I have tried and tried and tried.
Got to keep calling, keep looking. Because the answer is not to give up. You and I agree on that.
Absolutely.
But here's what the other answer is not. The answer is not, hey, let me go in and represent myself and see what happens.
Well, and that's only because I don't have any more money right now for an attorney to represent me for my grandparents. I'm just trying to stay in their lives. I'm just trying to get visitation rights. You know, if I can't have them back at home, which is ultimately the right thing, is I want them home with us, with their family, where they're supposed to be. I just want visitation rights. You know, I'm losing my grandchildren, and the case managers they've lied. They have actually lied, and I can prove they've lied. You know, I actually have solid proof between court documents, court transcripts, and text messages that they have been dishonest. Because the supervisor, the case manager said, oh, we referred her to play therapy. She said this in court on January the 20th, 2021, in court when she was questioned about what kind of services they offered. She goes, oh, we referred her to a play therapist. My attorney said, where did you refer? Oh, over on Forum Drive. She never referred me to a play therapist. There is no play therapist that accepts children in foster care on Forum Drive. She couldn't say the name, the date, or anything. She made it up out of air. Of course, the judge had, he did find complete, he didn't find Children's Division credible. He found them not credible. And this was January. This is when I went back the second time. But he still wouldn't do placement of my grandchildren. He saw no reasoning, no foundation to remove them from their current foster placement, other than we were their family. He acknowledges the bond. He acknowledges that we have a bond with our grandchildren. Absolutely acknowledge it. But he said there is no legitimate reasoning for him to place the children back in our home.
Okay, so Emily, we're running out of time. I gave you some very direct steps to do. DHHS. Okay, that's a big one. All right.
Yes, I wrote it. I wrote it down, Mr. Davis.
U.S. Department of Justice, Civil Rights Division, and maybe even make a complaint to your state DSS or Department of Social Services. All right. And definitely talk to someone about making that judicial complaint.
I'll tell you something really quickly. I called Jefferson City, which is the Missouri Department of Social Services Children's Division. I called them and tried to talk to them. Would you like to know what their reply was? I don't have time for this. Click. Swear. I don't have time for this.
I completely believe you. I believe you. I don't want, Georgette sometimes tells me, Vince, you sound too harsh. Okay. I believe you 100%. All right. But you can't give up. The question now becomes, what are we going to do next?
Right. That's I'm like, what do I feel like the circle, like you said, the hamster wheel, the circle.
Right.
The circle. There's got to be an out.
Many years ago, before I even got married and had kids, I had a mentor that once told me something about life. And he told me, Life is full of problems. You're either in a problem or you're moving to the next problem. And he says the trick is no matter what happens in life, to pick yourself up off the ground and take that next step forward. As long as you keep moving forward, you have hope. You have a chance. You know, have you ever seen those pictures of the guy with the pick and he's, you know, in a cave and he's looking for gold or diamonds and he stops inches before he hits the jackpot because he gets tired and he leaves? Inches. I think from what you've told me, you're inches from hitting the jackpot. What you've told me about the judge, if it's true, I don't know if it's true, but if it's true, in my mind, that's significant.
I showed you this. Does that show you I'm telling the truth?
Right. But we're not gonna mention any names, but assuming
I didn't mention name. I just got it. I've got the proof right here.
Okay. Tomorrow morning, promise me that you will call and fill out your complaint, or you might be able to go online, that website that I found that I put in the comments. I think you can go right online and make the complaint. You know, nowadays everything's on the internet.
Oh yeah, you can't do anything in person anymore.
Right. Especially during COVID.
No, you can't. You
Right.
can't do anything anymore.
You know what? So let's do this. You know what? I want you to call Georgette tomorrow morning at 8:00. Georgette wakes up early.
Okay, is that 8:00 her time?
Yeah, it could be 8:00.
Georgette, honey, why don't you call me? I'll answer the phone for you. Why don't you call me so I don't disturb you and get your coffee?
I'm up at 5 o'clock in the morning. I'm up at 5 in the morning.
Well, you call me when you have a minute. That's why I know that's not. I'll answer the phone. I'll answer the phone because I know we're 2 hours time difference. I'll answer the phone. I will talk to anybody that can help me at any time during the day. No, I don't care.
I'll do that.
Step one, you'll make your complaint tomorrow.
Yes.
Okay. All
yes.
Right. You know, we're going to invite you back on the show, and so you can give us an update. I really am interested in your case because it seems like something is really wrong, really wrong. If you had your grandkids or these kids for 3 years and they came and took them and never gave you a hearing about it, never told you why, I mean, come on, what's going on with that?
2 hours notice is all I had, Mr. Davis. We're moving the children. You have no say in it. The judge is always going to believe what Children's Division says. No matter what you say, the judge will always believe Children's Division. I am telling you word for word what I was told by the case manager, word for word.
Can I say something real quick? I know we're running out of time. She actually said something that 3 people disclosed today, and 2 of the people actually recorded the social worker saying that they are above the judges. One of our callers said to her, the judge makes the final decision, like normal would be. She said the judge that she's above the judge. She's actually above that judge, and she said that the judges listen to them.
Amen. When we walked out of court, that case manager was laughing and giggling at the judge, laughing and giggling.
Yep. A lot of them say that, Davis. So really, they do have control more than the judges do. They really do, because they're the ones who inform the judges. Yeah, they do. I know you disagree with me, and we talked about this before, but the judges do listen to the social workers. They do what the social workers.
No, by law, they have to listen to the social worker. But if you have
the social workers,
I'm going to put you on mute.
Okay.
Listen, everyone in California and probably in most states, by law, the judge has to listen to the social worker. By law, okay? But the judge doesn't have to do what the social worker recommends. And the way you convince a judge to do differently from the social worker is have the right evidence to convince the judge otherwise. And this is what goes back to what I was telling you guys earlier. A lot of people just tell me the law says blah, 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 blah. Okay. Now what? What about the evidentiary analysis? Oh, what are you talking about? That's important. All right. Hey, Emily, I want to thank you from the bottom of my heart for coming on. You're so prepared. You're one of the most prepared guests we've ever had.
Thank you. I'm sitting here thinking I blew it. I blew it. I was completely unprepared. Thank you.
No, you're one of the most prepared people I've ever had. If you were in this area, I'd probably hire you to work for my law firm. Unfortunately, you've learned a lot about the CPS system, and it's not good, but you have specialized knowledge that a lot of people don't have.
Lots of flaws.
That's all right.
Lots of flaws with the CPS system. Lots of flaws.
Yeah. We all know that, and we're trying to make changes. Mm-hmm. But we're going to keep in touch with you. Georgette's going to call you tomorrow, and we're going to have you back on the show in the future, okay?
Thank you, Mr. Davis. I'll talk to you tomorrow, Georgette. I'll answer your call. When you get your coffee, girl, I'll have mine too.
All right.
All right. Thank you.
Now, tonight, Georgette, I'm going to do something new. There are people logging off, and they're going to log off to we're going to have an after party. Yeah. Let me unmute you. We're going to have an after party here. Uh-huh. Let me tell you what the after party is going to be. The after party is going to be people are going to post questions, and I'm going to try to answer some of these questions. And if I answer a question, or it's an interesting question or a story, I might even bring them online with us right now.
Wow.
Right. So I need their email and stuff like that. But so starting right now, anybody watching, the number of people that are watching has dropped significantly over the channels because they think it's over. All right. Now, people right now, if you have a question, starting right now at 8:20 p.m., ask your question and I will try to answer it. Okay? Nobody's posting a question. I guess nobody.
No, Carissa she just texted me. Hold on.
Carissa has to post the question on the Facebook. Okay, here's one. Bell Mosk, quick tips for court trial next week. Okay, I'm going to give you a tip. This is a secret strategy that I tell people, my clients, okay? If and when you testify, there's a certain way you must testify, all right? And here it is. Number one, you must tell the truth, even if you think it's going to hurt you. Number two, when someone asks you a question, you listen to the question, you take a breath, and then you answer it. When you take that breath, your brain catches up with you. Number three, never, ever, ever interrupt the questioner, and don't argue with the questioner. If something needs to be fixed or followed up on, your attorney will do it. All right? So there's a tip on testifying. The next tip for trial, Bella Mosk? The next tip for trial I have is this. You have to sit down on the phone or in person or on Zoom or WebEx and come up with a strategy a plan, PLAN, with your attorney before trial. Like if it's next week, you should be doing it now. Once you have the plan, you need to list out your witnesses, subpoena them, and list out your documents, your exhibits, and subpoena them or the custodian of records so that they will be admissible in court. Okay, Bella Mosk, I gave you some tips there. I hope they help you. Call me and or call us next week and let us know. All right, here's another question during our after party. It says, Woodrow Mayburn, watching on our YouTube channel. If my kids were detained from retaliation or for retaliation from reporting a CSW worker, what can I do? Okay, let's assume that you are correct. Your kids were taken because the social worker got pissed off because you turned them in. Number one, you must talk to your attorney and come up with a plan and a strategy to get your kids back. That's number one. Now, it may seem obvious as the nose on my face or your face, but a lot of people approach these things emotionally, egotistically, and they don't come up with a plan. You know, I talked to two of my lawyers today, and they wanted to ask me a question about a case that's coming up. And they both were, yeah, for about 5 minutes. And I said, well, you guys haven't told me the plan. I can't answer your questions until you come up with a plan. Okay, and Woodrow, the next thing you should do is go talk to a civil rights lawyer, preferably one that has experience in suing social workers, and come up with a plan to be compensated. All right? Those are the two things you have to do. All right. Let's go to USA Mommy. USA Mommy says, how do you do all this, Vince, every day and stay so positive? I don't know. I just think it's part of my nature. You know, I'll tell you something. When I was growing up, listen, my father's African American. My mother's Japanese. He met my mother in Japan at the end of the Korean War. He was stationed in Japan. But I grew up in my father's mother's house, an African American woman, and her husband, my grandfather, in South Central Los Angeles. Now, I'm 63. You know, things were a lot different for Black folks back then. And one of the reasons why I became a lawyer is because I wanted to help people. Because I saw a lot of what I would consider injustices, right? Especially with, Black and brown people. But I see it now. I mean, it has no color lines in the CPS thing. Black, white, Asian, Latino, or Latinx, they don't care. And, a lot of people will call me crazy, but I think it is because of the money. There's no other explanation for them doing things the way they do. I have no proof of this, but it's something that occurs, a couple of times a year over the decades that I've been practicing in this area of law. And that is the allegation that social workers take bribes. I have no proof of that. But why are they any different from the rest of society? I see stuff on 60 Minutes on the news about some judge, who got in trouble for allegedly doing something like that. Why wouldn't a social worker allegedly do something like that? I don't know. So I try to stay positive because I'm trying to help people. You know, that's how I do it. And I have a great team of people that I work with that help me, like Georgette, right? Like Amanda Cisco, whose show is tomorrow night at 7 p.m. Like Brian Hamilton, whose show is Friday at 7 p.m. Like Aaron Carranza, whose show was last night at 7 p.m. I work with a great, some great attorneys in my office, and we're just trying to help people. All right, let's go to the next question. Then, all right, here we go. From Sheila Griggs, sorry. Sheila Griggs, what to do when DCS keeps postponing court due to family therapy? I also have been signed up for a different type of parenting class, which also entails my visits with my children for 4 hours every Thursday. Okay, Miss Griggs, I'm not sure what you're trying to ask me. Let me unmute you. Can you tell me what your take on that one is, Georgette? And Georgette, I can't unmute you. You must have yourself on mute.
What to do when DCFS keep postponing court due to family therapy? She's trying to say, what do you do when DCFS blocks court because of family therapy?
Ms. Griggs, I'm sorry, we're going to have to skip your question. All right, all right, let's go to a super fan of our shows, Carissa. What happened to saving the children, and what is the best interest for the children? Why doesn't anyone put the children's needs first? Why would they put them in a strange home and take them out of their own families? That's traumatizing and awful. Well, there's two versions or two answers to that, and sometimes they overlap. A lot of people will say they take children out of their homes and away from their families because of the money, the economic incentive. It's like, what, $80 billion budget nationwide, CPS? That's a lot of money, right? And social public agencies, they're in business to make money. We never think that because they're our government, but they're, everybody's putting their hand in the feeding at the federal trough for federal money, right? So I guess follow the money. Then there are those that say that only happens when we protect children, when we want to protect children. And sometimes I believe that. A lot of times I don't believe it. And then there are the occasions where you take a kid out of the home because of domestic violence that the kid may or may not have seen. And of course, the kid goes into a foster home where he or she is abused by another foster kid or foster parent. Does that happen all the time? No, it doesn't happen all the time, but it happens enough, right? And if it happens one time, that's too many times for me. All right.
Okay, let's go back to Shirley again, Vincent. So what she was trying to say is that she's trying to say CPS will not continue keeping the arrangement for visitation. That's what she was trying to say. So they're not keeping the arrangement for visitations. Am I right? I hope.
I don't think so. But here's another question by Shirley during the after party. What do you do to get the ball rolling for our family therapy when the supervisor is seeking a specific therapist? Georgette, can you translate for
What
me?
do you do to get the ball rolling?
Shirley, I'm not understanding your question.
Specific when the supervisor is seeking a specific.
You know what I'm going to do? I'm going to do this because Shirley, is a guest, a big fan. Shirley, put your email in in the comments, and I'm going to send you an invite right now to join us on this live stream so I can talk to you. Okay? So I can talk to you. And if I see your email in a few minutes, I'll bring you on. Okay, here is Mariah Hall. If I'm a youth in the care of DCFS, since how can I get emancipated earlier? Is that possible for the judge to confirm that? Yeah, if you are, under the age of 18, there is a way for you to get emancipated. If you're in the care of DCFS, you have a court-appointed attorney. You should contact your court-appointed attorney and discuss that issue with him or her. I personally, I'm not a big fan of emancipation. I mean, it's the law, but I'm also a father, and I was also, your age at one time, and I can't speak for everyone, but generally, I mean, that's it's very tough to make it when you're not even 18 years old and you want to be emancipated, because usually, you might be pissed off at somebody, right? So definitely talk to your attorney, or if you have a counselor, talk to your counselor. And in this situation, maybe you want to talk to the social worker. All social workers aren't bad, you know that. And some of them, are trying to help people.
Oh my goodness, Vincent.
Let me mute you. Okay. I don't see any more questions, and I don't see Shirley giving me her email. So we're going to call it a night tonight. We're going to be, Ms. Truen, thank you very much for joining me, co-hosting tonight's show. We're going to be on tomorrow night with Amanda Cisco as the co-host with a civil rights show. It's called Fight CPS, the Civil Rights Struggle. All right. So tomorrow at 7, we'll see you guys tomorrow at 7 Pacific time on the same social media sites, and including on Facebook and on YouTube. All right. Good night, everyone. Have a good night.